The wind howled like a wild animal outside the cabin, rattling the fragile wooden walls with a ferocity I had never imagined. I shivered violently, pulling my thin sweater tighter around my shoulders, wishing Hugo had at least left me a blanket or a fire. He'd promised a romantic winter getaway, a cabin tucked away in the snowy mountains, the perfect escape for us, or so I thought. I had expected warmth, candles, maybe even laughter. Instead, I got silence and betrayal. Hugo had smiled at me that morning, kissed me on the cheek, and promised me a night of cozy intimacy. Then he left. Left me alone. Left me in a storm that had grown furious and relentless, leaving me to fight the cold with nothing but my own trembling body. Hours passed, and the temperature dropped, freezing my fingers and toes, turning every breath into shards of ice in my lungs. My teeth chattered uncontrollably, and I realized I couldn't even feel my legs. Panic tried to rise, but I forced it down. I can survive this. I will survive this. And yet, part of me felt like I had already died. Hugo's betrayal wasn't just leaving me in the storm. It was the culmination of every careless word, every dismissal, every night I had begged for attention and received only apathy. He didn't even glance back at me when he left, didn't hesitate as if I were invisible, as if my life, or my suffering, meant nothing. I stumbled toward the small window, peering into the white blur outside, searching desperately for any sign of life, any hope of rescue. My vision blurred from cold and tears, and I sank to the floor, curling into myself like a shell. I could feel the ice creeping into my bones, freezing not just my body, but my very spirit. And then, faintly, I heard a sound, something alive, persistent, insistent. My heart stuttered with hope, and I forced myself to crawl toward the faint glow of a car's headlights cutting through the snowstorm. A figure emerged, enormous and solid, braving the storm as if it were nothing. My chest tightened, my lips forming words I couldn't yet speak. "Roman," I whispered, barely able to breathe. He knelt beside me, wrapping me in a massive coat he had brought with him, lifting me effortlessly into warmth. "Maya," he said, his voice low and steady. "You're alive. You're okay. I've got you." I let him hold me, the warmth of his body seeping into my frozen limbs, into my icy heart. I realized something terrifying and liberating at the same time. Hugo's betrayal had killed the part of me that had been naive, trusting, and dependent. I wasn't the same girl he left in that cabin. I was reborn, cold, sharp, and burning with the need for justice. As Roman guided me away from the storm, every instinct in me screamed one truth. Hugo had underestimated me, as he always had. He had thought leaving me to freeze would break me, bend me, make me small. He had no idea what he had done. He had forged a fire in me that even the harshest winter could not extinguish. And I would make him pay. The first thing I remember when I woke up was warmth, real warmth, not the illusion of it from a failing heater or body heat that quickly faded. Roman had built a fire in his living room, and the scent of pine logs mixed with the faint aroma of hot chocolate he had prepared. My fingers still trembled as I wrapped myself in a thick blanket he had draped over my shoulders. "You're awake," he said softly, sitting across from me, his massive frame filling the armchair. "Good." I was worried for a second there. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw from the cold and fear. "How?" "I found you," he said simply. "The storm wasn't slowing down, but I knew I had to get to you. Hugo, he's lucky I didn't find him first." His jaw tightened. "Leaving you like that. Unbelievable." I shivered again, though this time from a mix of adrenaline and fury. "Lucky? Lucky," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "Do you know what it felt like? To be left alone in the freezing dark? To think I'd die out there, and he wouldn't even care?" Roman's eyes softened, but his grip on the mug in his hands was tight. "I know, Maya. I can't imagine the terror. But you're alive, and that's what matters. And I promise he will regret this. You won't ever be alone again." I looked at him, my chest heaving. "Regret? That's not enough. He can't just walk away from this. My voice broke as I struggled to keep composure. I want him to feel what it's like to have everything he thinks he owns ripped from him. I want him to understand that he can't treat me like I'm replaceable. Roman leaned forward, his gaze intense. Then we'll make him understand. Every single thing he's done to you. Every betrayal, it ends now. I'll be with you every step. And you? You won't be afraid again. Not ever. I felt a surge of hope mingled with rage. For the first time, I realized that Hugo's betrayal had done something strange. It had hardened me. I want to start, I said, voice firmer now. I want to take back control. Not just my life, but everything he thought he could manipulate. Roman nodded, his eyes darkening with determination. Good. Because he's not just going to regret this. He's going to realize that leaving you in that storm wasn't cruelty. It was the moment he created his own downfall. I let out a small, bitter laugh. He left me to freeze, and he built a fire inside me instead. I'm not the girl he left there, Roman. I'm something else now. You're the girl he should have never underestimated, Roman said. He stood and offered his hand to me. Come on, let's start planning. Every move, every step. We'll dismantle him piece by piece. And this time, you're not alone. I took his hand, feeling the warmth of his palms seep into mine. Then let's burn this winter down, I said, my lips curling into a determined smile. Roman grinned, and for the first time since the storm, I felt a surge of exhilaration. This was no longer survival. This was the beginning of something unstoppable. The next morning, I woke to the faint hum of Roman moving around the kitchen. The smell of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon reminded me of the life I was determined to reclaim, a life Hugo thought he could control. You're up early, I said, wrapping the blanket tighter around my shoulders as I walked in. I could say the same about you, Roman replied, smirking slightly. But I knew you wouldn't waste time sulking. You're already planning, aren't you? I raised an eyebrow, sitting at the kitchen counter. Planning, yes. Hugo left me to die in a storm. Do you think I'm just going to sit here? Roman set a plate of breakfast in front of me and sat across. Good. Because this is where we start. You're going to hit him where it hurts, the part of his ego that thinks he's untouchable. I picked up my coffee, letting it warm my chilled hands. And where's that exactly? His social life, Roman said firmly. Hugo thrives on appearances, on the illusion that he's adored, untouchable. We're going to chip away at it. Subtly, carefully. Public perception is everything to him. I felt a fire ignite inside me. Yes. He deserves to crumble under the weight of his own arrogance. Roman leaned forward, his eyes locking on mine. And while he's crumbling, you'll stand tall. No fear, no apologies. You're not the girl in that cabin anymore. You're Maya Hayes, the woman who commands respect. I nodded, feeling the power of his words. I am done being invisible, done being small. He grinned, a hint of amusement mixed with admiration. Then let's make him see it. Our first move was subtle, almost surgical. We sent out invitations to a charity event, an event Hugo always bragged about attending. But we didn't invite him. Instead, we showcased Maya Hayes in every piece of social media, every flyer, every press release. Pictures of me smiling, interacting with influential figures, the aura of confidence around me. It was impossible to ignore. You really think this will get to him? I asked nervously, watching Roman update the posts online. He'll see, Roman said, his tone calm but certain. He always does. He can't stand not being at the center. And he'll notice you, alive, radiant, untouchable without him. By evening, the first ripple of reaction hit. A mutual acquaintance sent a text. Hugo is asking why he wasn't invited. Seems he's more rattled than usual. I felt a rush of satisfaction, but Roman placed his hand on mine. Patience. This is just the beginning. We'll dismantle him piece by piece. And while we do, you'll never be cold or powerless again. I swear it. I met his gaze, the warmth of his resolve mingling with the cold fury I had carried since the storm. I believe you, I said. And I believe me. Hugo left me to freeze, but I'm the one starting a fire now. And he's the one who's going to feel the burn. Roman smiled, almost proudly. That's my Maya. For the first time in weeks, I felt whole. Hugo's betrayal had forged something new in me, strength, clarity, and a fierce, unrelenting fire. With Roman at my side, I was unstoppable. The winter sun barely pierced the clouds that day, but I felt a heat inside me that no storm could ever extinguish. Roman and I had planned the next move carefully, ensuring Hugo's ego would take the first real blow. It wasn't about violence, it was about control, perception, and reclaiming the life he tried to strip from me. We arrived at the city's elite winter gala, a lavish event Hugo would have expected to dominate. The air inside the hall smelled of perfume and expensive cologne, and the chandeliers sparkled like stars. But this time, I walked in with my head high, shoulders squared, my coat tailored perfectly, my eyes bright and unyielding. "Remember," Roman whispered, his hand brushing mine for a brief, grounding moment, "you are untouchable tonight. Every look, every smile, it's your weapon." I nodded, letting a small, confident smile curl my lips. "I'm ready. Let's make him notice." And notice he did. From across the room, I saw him, Hugo, perfectly coiffed, surrounded by people eager to impress him. For a moment, I felt nothing, just a hollow ache where trust used to be. But then Roman's hand tightened around mine, a reminder that I wasn't alone, and the fire in my chest flared to life. I approached the crowd, engaging in polite conversation, laughing lightly, moving with ease. Every word, every gesture, radiated confidence. Every glance toward Hugo was measured, just enough for him to feel the shift. "Who is she?" Hugo's voice, tight and incredulous, carried across the room. I caught him staring, jaw tense, his composure cracking like thin ice. Roman leaned close to my ear. "She's the woman you tried to freeze. And she's hotter than you ever imagined." I bit back a laugh and focused on a conversation with an influential guest, letting my charm and intelligence shine. But I could feel Hugo's gaze on me, like frost creeping over the edges of warmth he could no longer touch. Then the subtle crescendo. Someone asked me to speak for a small charity auction. I stepped forward gracefully, Roman's steady presence at my side, and delivered a few well-chosen words. My voice was firm, confident, and impossible to ignore. Every word carried authority. Every glance invited admiration. I could see Hugo's lips press into a thin line, his eyes dark with frustration. After the speech, I returned to Roman's side. "You saw that?" I whispered, excitement tinged with satisfaction. "He can't believe it." Roman's grin was sharp. "He's panicking. And he's going to continue panicking. You're reclaiming what's yours, Maya. One glance, one word, one presence at a time." I exhaled, letting the power of the evening sink in. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was commanding attention, reshaping perceptions, rewriting the narrative he had controlled for so long. As we left the gala later, the cold winter air hit me, but it didn't bite. I had Roman's warmth, yes, but more importantly, I had my own fire. Hugo had left me to freeze, but now he would watch me burn, alive, untouchable, unstoppable. I glanced at Roman, his expression proud and protective, and felt a fierce sense of gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me," I murmured. He smiled, squeezing my hand. "I didn't need to believe. I knew. Hugo underestimated you, Maya. And that's his first mistake, and his last." That night, as we drove back through snow-laden streets, I felt a thrill I hadn't felt in years. The storm had shaped me, sharpened me, and now I was ready to reclaim everything Hugo had tried to take. And I wasn't just ready. I was eager. The first week after the gala felt like a quiet battlefield. Hugo had retreated into his pride, licking the wounds of seeing me so utterly unshakable in public. But Roman and I knew better. This was only the beginning. Every action we took, every subtle move, was designed to dismantle the life he thought he could control. Roman sat across from me in his apartment, laptop open, documents and social media feeds scattered around us. "You ready for round two?" he asked, his voice low and steady. I nodded, sipping my coffee. Let's make him regret ever leaving me to freeze. He smirked, leaning forward. Step 1, his finances. He prides himself on control, wealth, and appearances. If we touch one of those, watch him crumble. I raised an eyebrow. And you're going to help me do that? Of course, Roman said without hesitation. You're not doing this alone, Maya. Not now, not ever. The plan was simple but effective. With Roman's connections, we exposed Hugo's overextensions and investments, quietly leaking information to the right financial contacts, making his empire appear shaky. And as we predicted, the whispers started. Investors pulling back, socialites murmuring, Hugo's image slipping like ice melting in the sun. I felt a rush every time I checked the news feeds. They're actually listening, I whispered, a thrill coursing through me. They're taking me seriously, and he's powerless. Roman's hand brushed mine, grounding me. Powerful women always get noticed, especially ones who are underestimated. The next day, I ran into Hugo at a downtown gala he tried to attend without anyone noticing. I could feel him staring from across the room, desperate for control, desperate for me to falter. Enjoying yourself, Maya? He asked as I passed, his voice sharp, but tight at the edges. I smiled lightly, keeping my tone calm and measured. I am. And you? Doing okay, without me freezing somewhere in the snow. His jaw tightened, but I didn't wait for a reply. I knew it would sting him more to be ignored than to argue. Roman appeared at my side, protective and calm. Leave it, he said quietly, his hand resting against my lower back. He's exactly where we want him. We walked away, leaving Hugo flustered and powerless in the middle of a crowd that no longer looked up to him as before. I could feel his panic simmering, his pride cracking with every step we took together. That night, as we reviewed the day's victories, Roman asked, "Feeling the fire yet?" I nodded, leaning against him. Yes. Every move feels like reclaiming a part of myself he tried to destroy. He tilted his head, eyes soft but intense. And the best part? What? That this isn't just about revenge. It's about you finding your strength and realizing you never needed him to survive. You've been alive all along, Maya. You just didn't know it yet. I felt a warmth in my chest, mingled with the fire that had begun the moment Hugo left me in the storm. I do now, I said. And I'm not stopping. Roman smiled, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Good, because I'll be right here, every step, every move, every victory. For the first time, I truly believed it. Hugo had tried to freeze me, but I had melted his world with my own fire, and with Roman by my side, the storm was just beginning. The morning light reflected off the frost-covered windows as Roman and I reviewed the next phase of our plan. Hugo's empire was beginning to show cracks, but we both knew he wouldn't fall easily. Pride made him dangerous. Arrogance made him blind. And that's exactly what we were counting on. Today, Roman said, leaning over the table, we hit him socially. Financial instability is one thing, but public embarrassment, that's personal. That's what will make him sweat. I arched an eyebrow. And how exactly do you propose we do that? He smiled, sharp and confident. Subtle. We invite the right people to a charity gala. The kind Hugo thinks he controls. Only he won't be invited. Instead, Maya Hayes, the woman he left freezing in the snow, will be the star. The center of attention. The queen of the evening. A thrill ran through me. Yes. I want him to see me standing, radiant, untouchable. He's going to wish he had never left the cabin. Roman reached for my hand, holding it firmly. And I'll be by your side, making sure he never gets close enough to ruin your night. The evening arrived, glittering with chandeliers and murmurs of high society. I stepped into the ballroom with Roman, head held high, letting the gazes fall upon me. Not because I needed validation, but because I was claiming the attention I had always deserved. Every conversation, every laugh, every glance was measured to radiate confidence and control. And then I saw him. Hugo, lurking near the entrance, flanked by sycophants, his face twisted in disbelief. He had expected to dominate, to be noticed, to bask in admiration. Instead, every eye was on me. Every whisper carried my name. Every smile I received was a blow to his ego. "You're enjoying this way too much," Roman murmured beside me, his hand resting lightly on my back. "I am," I admitted, feeling a fire in my chest. I can see it on his face. He's trying to hide it, but he's panicking. I feel powerful. We navigated the evening with precision, Roman always a step behind, a protective shadow. When Hugo finally attempted to approach me, his lips pressed into a thin line of forced composure, I ignored him completely, allowing his humiliation to stew in front of everyone. Roman's hand brushed mine, a silent reassurance, and I realized this was more than revenge. This was liberation. Later, as the gala drew to a close, Roman leaned close. "How's the fire inside you now?" I smiled, my eyes alight, roaring. I've never felt so alive. He underestimated me for too long. But tonight he truly saw me, and he hated it. Perfect. Roman chuckled softly. Good. That's exactly the point. Hugo thought fear could control you. But fire? Fire doesn't submit. Fire burns. I looked at him, and for a moment, the cold bitterness of betrayal melted away, replaced by warmth I had never allowed myself to feel. "Thank you," I whispered, "for seeing me, believing in me, for staying." He captured my hand in both of his, pressing a reassuring kiss to my knuckles. "Always, Maya. Always. You'll never face another storm alone." I allowed myself to believe it. For the first time since the snowstorm, I felt untouchable, not because Hugo feared me, but because I had finally discovered my own strength. And with Roman by my side, nothing could ever freeze my heart again. The chill of winter lingered outside, but inside, I felt a heat that made the cold irrelevant. Roman and I were hunched over documents and laptops in his study, the hum of the heater mixing with our determined focus. Hugo's social image had begun to crumble, but now it was time to hit him where it truly hurt, his finances. "Are you ready for round 3? Roman asked, glancing at me, eyes sharp and unwavering. I nodded, setting my jaw. "Let's finish this." I want him completely exposed, every lie, every privilege, every manipulation undone. Roman smiled faintly. "That's my girl. Remember, he thrives on control. Take that away, piece by piece, and he'll panic." Our plan was meticulous. Roman had gathered every weak link, overstretched investments, hidden debts, poor financial decisions Hugo thought no one knew about. We began sending discreet tips to his associates, leaking just enough information to make him look incompetent without giving away our hand. The ripples were immediate. Investors hesitated, board members questioned his judgment, and whispers of doubt began spreading through his social circles. I watched the news feeds, a wicked satisfaction curling in my chest. "He's losing everything he thought he controlled," I murmured. The arrogance, the confidence, all melting. Roman reached over, his hand brushing mine. "And you're standing here, Maya, untouchable. He can't touch you, and he can't stop what's coming." The next day, I ran into Hugo at a charity luncheon he hadn't realized I would attend. His face went pale when he saw me walking in confidently, Roman trailing just behind. "Maya," he said, attempting a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. I didn't expect to. I cut him off with a slow, deliberate smile. "To see me thriving while you flounder? I imagine it's a surprise." Roman's hand found mine, squeezing it lightly. "Ignore him. He's powerless now." I didn't need to say more. Hugo's eyes flickered with panic and fury, and I felt an intoxicating mix of triumph and liberation. He had tried to freeze me, to control me, to break me, but now I controlled the narrative. Now I was untouchable. Later, as Roman and I reviewed the day's successes, he leaned back, looking at me with a mix of pride and something softer, something that made my chest tighten. "You're incredible," he said quietly. "Not just for what you're doing to him, but for you. The strength, the fire, the determination. You've always had it. Hugo just forced you to realize it. I blushed slightly, feeling warmth that had nothing to do with the fire in my chest. I couldn't have done any of this without you, I admitted. Roman reached out, cupping my cheek. And you never will again. I'll always have your back. I leaned into his touch, letting myself believe it. The storm Hugo had left me in had forged me into someone stronger, sharper, and untouchable. And Roman, my protector, my confidant, my constant, was there, steady and unwavering. I realized, with a thrill of certainty, that Hugo had underestimated me one last time. He thought leaving me to freeze would destroy me. Instead, it awakened something unstoppable. And with Roman, I knew I would never, ever feel powerless again. The morning air was crisp, but I felt invincible. Hugo's empire was unraveling, his social life a disaster, and every calculated step Roman and I had taken had left him reeling. Today was the day we would deliver the final blow, not with violence, but with truth, exposure, and the undeniable power of my own resurgence. Roman and I walked into the law firm's conference room, stacks of documents and evidence neatly organized. "This is it," he said, eyes sharp, yet soft when he glanced at me. "Everything he built on lies, arrogance, and cruelty, it ends here." I nodded, swallowing the last traces of fear that had lingered since the storm. "I'm ready," I said, voice steady, unwavering. "I want him to see everything he's lost, and feel it." As we filed the documents with the necessary authorities, I felt a thrilling sense of justice. Every mismanaged account, every hidden debt, every manipulation, all exposed. Hugo's carefully curated image of invincibility was crumbling. Later, we attended a public charity event, where Hugo had hoped to regain some semblance of control. But the moment he entered, I felt the shift. Whispers followed him like shadows. Eyes that once admired now avoided him. And there I was, Maya Hayes, radiant, untouchable, alive in every sense. Hugo tried to approach me, his face tight with suppressed anger. "Maya, we need to talk," he said, but I shook my head. "No, Hugo. We don't," I said, my voice firm. "Everything you wanted, everything you tried to control, you lost it. I'm done being afraid. I'm done being frozen. You're powerless." He opened his mouth, but no words could undo the years of betrayal. No charm could erase the evidence of his failures. Roman's hand found mine, grounding me, and I realized the final truth. I didn't need him. I never had. "You see, Hugo," Roman said quietly, his tone low and calm, "she's not the girl you left in a snowstorm. She's stronger, smarter, and untouchable. And I'm not letting you hurt her again." Hugo's shoulders slumped, the weight of his own arrogance crushing him more than any words we could have spoken. He left without another glance, a shell of the man who had once tried to control me. As we stepped out into the night, the cold wind brushing against my face, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: freedom. Roman wrapped his arm around me, and I leaned against him, feeling his warmth seep into my bones. "You did it," he whispered. "You claimed everything he tried to take from you. And you did it with fire, with courage, and with your heart intact." I looked up at him, my eyes shining. "We did it. And I couldn't have done any of it without you. You were my strength when I couldn't stand, my fire when I was frozen, my shield when I was vulnerable." Roman smiled, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "And I'll always be. Maya, you're not just untouchable. You're unstoppable. And from now on, you'll never be alone." I felt tears of triumph and relief slip down my cheeks, but they weren't tears of weakness. They were proof that I had survived, that I had burned through the cold and emerged whole, alive and radiant. Leaning into him, I whispered, "I'm never looking back. I'm never frozen again." And in that moment, I realized something incredible. I had reclaimed my life, my heart, and my happiness. Hugo was gone, powerless. And Roman, my protector, my constant, my love, was finally my forever. I had survived the storm. I had burned through it. And now, Nothing could ever stop me.